Thanks for joining the Scrum Life episode today. I have a special guest with me here. Her name is Arden Shiller, and she is the founder of Let's Grow Girls. She also owns some other businesses, which I'll let her tell you a little bit more about. But the reason I thought it would be great to bring Arden on is she's actually my fitness coach, and I've had tremendous success working with her. And what I found when I started the program with her back in March is that a lot of what she's doing, it relates to the fundamentals of Agile. So in terms of Agile values, Scrum values, thought it was really interesting to see the link between fitness and what she's doing and actually be able to relate that to what I'm doing in my day-to-day work. So I thought a benefit would be talking a little bit about that because many people think of Agile as something that's just related to software development, and that's not the case. So I'm sure Arden will walk you through some examples. I'll talk about some examples today of how that relates. And then the other reason I thought it would be great to bring Arden on is because a lot of my students are transitioning from an industry that has nothing to do with IT, nothing to do with Scrum, from a completely industry. It could be someone who's a teacher, working in retail, really any type of background. So since Arden was able to make a career transition not too long ago, I thought it would be great for her to talk about that and overcoming any fears that are associated with going through a career change. So Arden, thanks so much for joining this episode of Scrum Life. I'd love for you to go ahead and just give everybody an overview of yourself and what you do today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie. It's really an honor. So with that being said, I'm Arden, and you can follow me on Instagram at LGG for Let's Grow Girls, B-I-Z coach if you have any questions moving forward. But pretty much I used to be a kindergarten teacher, and I started my own online fitness business in August 2020. And from there, I was able to scale and grow my fitness business. I left teaching, so I did make that transition in January 2021. And from there, I actually started a virtual assistant agency, and that kind of pairs business coaches with the average person who is learning how to, kind of assist online. And then I also am a online business coach. So I help businesses move from in-person to online or scale from, 0 to 5K months to 10K plus months. So yeah, my mission and my vision is just really to help you find joy and fulfillment and feel aligned with what you do in your business. And if not, I help you make that shift. And yeah, my goal is to really help you learn how to scale and grow your business while also being able to spend time with yourself, take care of yourself, be with your family, friends, and loved ones.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Arden. And I'm always impressed by all the different ventures that you have and just the transition that you've made. So congratulations on that. So the first thing I'd love to focus on is around change. And when we talk about Agile is really the ability to create and respond to change. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you were able to do that even within your own life. So creating change, being able to respond to change, because there's always so many unknowns, especially if you're starting a new business. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think the first step was to trust within myself, especially back when I started fitness coaching and I left teaching. I started to have to make some shifts in my mindset to recognize, like, why was I still in teaching? Because my fitness business was making 10K plus months, and I was still making like $120 a day teaching. It just made no sense. And it's honestly, I started to become a disservice to my students because all I wanted to do was my business. That's all I cared about. I would go into school with hopes that I would have some free time to record a workout. Or while my students were doing independent work, I would pull out my phone and check if I had messages from any fitness clients, right? And so it got to a point where there was literally no reason for me to be teaching because there are so many other people out there who wanted to be teachers and could have been a lot more of a service to those students. And I had to recognize that to be able to shift into fitness coaching, right, full time. And so that was definitely one of the biggest mindset shifts I needed to make, and like recognizing that like I was only in teaching because of the external chatter, because everybody around me said, Arden, teaching is stable. You're going to have a salary. Think about the pension. When you run your own business, you have to make that money. You're going to be inconsistent. You're going to be unstable. And that's scary for a lot of people. It's really uncomfortable to not know how much money you're going to make next month. But what I also had to learn was to trust that I will have that stable income within my business and that I can guarantee that by doing what I needed to do and really sticking to what I like to call like the fundamentals of my business. And with that, I was able to constantly bring in a consistent income, not just able to pay myself, but also pay a team. And so, yeah, with that being said, change was hard, but it was also recognizing the little mindset shifts I needed to make so that it didn't feel as hard.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's helpful for a lot of the audience too, as they're trying to make a change, is there's a lot of fear around changing, but I think you made a good point about like you're doing a disservice if there's something else that you're focused on. And I think that's true for people that are looking to make that career change, is being able to focus on the things that you know that you're good at or that you're really passionate about. So I'm glad you're able to make that transition. So keeping with the theme of change, a big thing related to what you do is helping people change their lives, change their health, and even their mindset. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about how you help people really live in an agile way, where they're able to create change in their lives and respond to, because along the way there can be challenges that are coming up that come up. So how do you help your clients with that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that drives anything in life is just the way that you talk to yourself and that your language and how you speak creates your reality. And so if you're constantly stepping on the scale and saying, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, it doesn't matter what the number on the scale is, you're always going to feel fat, right? And if you are constantly saying, I hate tracking my food, I hate tracking my food, I hate tracking my food, you're never going to enjoy or learn how to enjoy the tedious activities of tracking your food because you're so focused on hating it. And when we can shift those things, okay, instead of stepping on the scale and saying I'm fat, maybe saying, oh, I'm building muscle now, or oh, I recognize that I ate out last night, so of course my weight's going to be up a little bit, or oh, I'm tracking my food because I want to have a better understanding of what food is made up of so that this can be long term. When we start to just shift the way that we speak to ourselves, the reason why we're doing things, it is so much easier to like go into it feeling fulfilled and feeling like this is why I'm doing this. This is how I can step into transformation. And so I think the number one thing that I love to challenge my clients on is like, okay, you said this, and also I'd love to invite you to make a shift to recognize this. And then the second they make that shift, they're like, wow, that's so much easier to think of it that way, because it is. It's so much easier. And our brains are programmed to be negative, like so negative all the time. But if we can program our brains to be positive, we can literally create anything that we desire. So I think, was that most of the question?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that answered it. Thanks so much for that. And then continuing with that theme, another big thing in Agile or Scrum is being able to inspect and adapt. And that's something that I noticed a lot. It's something that I do in my day-to-day role as a Scrum Master, helping the team. We do something called retrospectives, where you reflect on what's going well, what could be done better, and what do we want to continue to do. So could you share a little bit about how you work with your clients on that, or how clients even do that to inspect how things are going, and then making shifts in order to make sure things aren't going as planned? Like, how can we learn from that and change?
Yeah, I love that. I think the number one thing that I really truly require all of my fitness clients to do is to take progress photos and body measurements if their goal is any sort of transformation. Now, if they come in and they're like, I just want to be healthy, I just want to feel happy, I just want to get moving, and they don't care how they look and they don't care about the physical side, they more or less care about the mental and emotional, that's different. But if they want to see physical results, I always require every week progress photos and body stats. And the reason being is because we look at those progress photos and body stats and we can actually figure out reasons as to maybe why their weight is up this week, maybe why the waist is bigger, right? There are so many outside factors that can affect your body. And it's crazy. It could literally be just like stress. Like I have literally gained 3 pounds when I get really stressed. I'll like step on the scale the next day. And this scale is never going to look like this, right? Or like this. It's always going to be like a going down, right? And so
Mhm.
when we can recognize why maybe it peaks a little, why maybe it drops a little, why maybe it peaks a little, why maybe it drops a little, when we can recognize that pattern, then we can adjust based off of that. Right? Okay, so you went out to eat, you ate at this place, you ate this food, and we weigh in the next day and you're up 3 pounds. Maybe that food just had way too much sodium for you. Or I've had clients who are vegan or vegetarian and they're like, they eat chicken and they feel like absolute crap the next day. And I'm like, okay, so now we know, okay, you ate chicken, probably not a good idea to eat chicken moving forward. Right. And so just listening to your body and listening to not just the scale, but every other part, your energy, your measurements, the way that you're moving, the way that you're feeling, your brain fog. There's so much that goes into fitness that's not just physical.
That's really great. Thanks, Arden. Another thing that I think is interesting too is how you talked about measuring certain things. So in Scrum, there are different types of reports that people use, and I think they're important, but it's really important to look at the aspects of why did things change. So you were talking, for instance, about, well, maybe you ate a certain type of food and it made you a little bit more bloated or gain weight. So one of the things is around velocity reports. It measures how many points did I commit to in this sprint and how much did I actually deliver on. Um, so it's not necessarily about that number. Sometimes it comes down to what are the other things that went into it. So I think it's about looking at the right types of measurements. So what are the types of things that you would actually look at? I know that you had said looking at measuring people, measuring their maybe their body weight. Are there any other types of measurements or like discussions that you have with them? I know like you do a check-in um, once a week and there's like a form. Is that something that you'd want to share a little bit more about and how you use that for you and your client to be able to inspect and adapt a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to the body stats, which would be your waist, your bicep measurements, your neck measurements, just your full body measurements, and the scale, which is obviously your weight, I always believe that with physical transformation, you have to have your mental and emotional up here also in place. And so I do send all my clients a check in form weekly that asks questions about stress, about sleep, about recovery, about what their everyday life is looking like, who if they're traveling, if they're drinking water, right? There's so many other things outside of just data measurements that can also affect your body. And so, yeah, so that check in form is huge because obviously it's more than just the physical. It's really diving into the mental, emotional, and even spiritual.
That's awesome. Thanks, Arden. And then another question I had was around like, I don't want to say failure, but sometimes people have specific measurements that they're looking to hit, and it doesn't always go the way that you plan. So, I think it's really important when you're working with an Agile team or a Scrum team to have that openness and not really have a fear of failure. Let's look at what happened and then we can move forward. So, have you had any experiences before where you feel like people weren't or maybe some of your clients weren't as open to discussing like things that aren't going as well? And like, what are ways that you've worked with them to try to help them feel like it's a safe zone and that you're able to really help them?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that you attract as a human being the same traits as other like I attract all of my clients that come to me have the same traits as me. And so I realize that if I'm stepping into vulnerability and if I'm sharing my story and if I'm sharing things that are a little uncomfortable on my end, my clients are going to feel safe to do that too, because I'm approachable, because they've seen that I'm not judging myself. So why would I judge them? Right. And I think one thing that's huge is like when I do have clients who maybe don't really want to talk about it, I always let them know that like I'd like to challenge them to be courageous. And talking about things that are hard to talk about is courageous. And a lot of people want to be courageous, right? Like you're like, oh, that's a good trait to have. So so knowing that like when you talk about things, and though the world used to say this X, Y, and Z, it's not like that anymore. We share our stories on social media. We're vulnerable now. Like we're all human, and there's no reason to judge any other person. And when you go in with literally zero expectations, zero intentions, I think a lot of the times, like my clients also go in with that. And so if we do ever have like a specific goal or a weight goal, and my clients aren't reaching that, it's always like we're always able to have that conversation of, okay, so we see that this, and this happened this month. There's a reason that you didn't hit this weight goal. And that's also totally okay. Don't beat yourself up. You're human. These things happened. Let's keep going.
Mm.
Right. And it's learning to give yourself compassion and grace and not judging yourself for things that may have affected you externally, or even internally, right? Going through a breakup, that's really rough. That's going to make the scale go way up. Losing a job, that's going to make the scale go way up. And so just knowing that like these things are going to happen, it's life, we're human. And so if we don't reach our goal exactly when we want to, trusting that we still will, it just is going to take more time.
That's awesome. Thanks, Arden. Another thing that I thought was really interesting about your program is sometimes I've worked with trainers where I feel like it's more of what we would call a waterfall approach. So you have an idea of this is what the goal is, and I'm just going to work on this for, let's say, a year. But with your program, I noticed it's more, I would say, agile based or almost similar to the Scrum framework, where it's broken down, it's time boxed. It's not just, okay, let's work on this for a whole year. We're not really going to make any adjustments. So could you talk a little bit about how you time box things? I noticed that you do things in phases, but also like you have that weekly check-in. I assume that you do part of this so that you can make adjustments along the way, or like look at specific goals along the way. So could you talk a little bit about like those time boxes and how that helps you work with your clients to achieve their goals?
Yeah, so weekly, I mean, we do the check-ins. I do Zooms with my one-on-one clients weekly. And then monthly, I like to kind of talk about the workout plan, right? So I keep a workout plan, and it's usually a month by month basis. And the workout plan could be, usually it's 4 weeks long. For my beginners, it's usually anywhere from 7 to 8 weeks long, because they can really progress. But if I have more advanced, or after usually the 4 to 6 month mark, clients, we start to do a 4 week based program where we really lean into their goals. And what that looks like in the 4 weeks, which is the monthlies, is, week one's going to be a deload week. Week two is going to be like gaining some strength, gaining some strength. Same with week three. And then week four is what I call the peak week. That's where we really push ourselves and we build a lot of muscle and we're very, very strong. And then boom, you have a new workout plan that's really going to add on to what you just did in the past, in the last month. And then that's going to be your new 4 weeks, starting at a deload, ramping up, and then boom, peak week. So that's kind of what that looks like. And then it comes into, I call it's like the 4 month. So with that is like, there's 3 4 month parts of the year. So every 4 months we have a new goal. So maybe your first 4 months, right, is like you really want to get stronger in your bench press and your squats and maybe your chin ups, right? Something like that. That's what the first 4 months are really going to focus and rotate on. The second 4 months, maybe that's going to be your deadlifts. Maybe that's going to be your, I don't know, I want to say like bench press, whatever, right? So then we continue to focus there. And then the last 3 months are your next goals. So that's a little bit more along the lines of strength training. But that's kind of what it goes from a year, which is 4 months, and then the 4 months and the 4 weeks. And then in those weeks, we do the progress and the check-ins. And that's what helps me bring you to the next week, the next 4 months, the overall year.
I love that. I love the fact that it's broken down into time boxes. I think it helps you really focus on what that specific thing is that you're working on, and then it gives you the ability to kind of adjust along the way. So the last major question I really have for you is around going back to the career transition. So do you have any advice that you would give to someone who's looking to transition from their current role into something completely different?
Yeah, I would definitely say, don't listen to the external chatter. Everybody has something to say, whether you're making $100,000 a month or $1,000 a month. Everybody has something to say. So do what feels best for you. Find a coach or a mentor that you feel aligned with who's going to provide you with that ongoing support, especially someone who's going to help you make those shifts in your mindset to really help you feel confident in what you're doing. And trust. One thing that I really leaned into is like trusting myself, trusting my business, and knowing that I can guarantee the life that I desire if I just keep doing what I'm doing. So, yeah, those three things.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Arden. So I wanted to say thanks to you for coming on and joining. I thought this was really helpful for both for people who are looking to transition their careers, but also understanding what's the link with Agile and fitness, or even working with different customers. So I think this is helpful for both Scrum Masters who are looking for what are things that I can do in my day-to-day that I can try to use Agile, but also for someone who really doesn't know a whole lot about Agile. There are benefits to using it in your business and in the things that you're doing. Before we close, I just wanted to hand it back to you, Arden, if you wanted to let people know again where they can find you and any like upcoming programs or things that they might want to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my fitness coaching business, you can follow me on Instagram. My username is AS Coaching Fit. We do have a self-compassion in the summer starting on July 1st challenge. It's $97 for 4 weeks. So you can find that on my Instagram. You can also add me on Facebook, Arden Shiller, pretty simple, ARDENSHILLER. And then my business coaching is LGG Biz Coach on Instagram, and you can add me on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Arden. Really fortunate to have you as a trainer and as a friend. And I'm also really happy that you were able to come on and share some tips in this episode. So thanks again for
Thanks
joining.
for having me. I
You're
appreciate it so
welcome.
much.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.